Hi again. So this is part 2 of the lectures on monopolies. We're going to talk about monopoly decision making this time, and how monopolists think. So a market with a monopoly functions very differently than a market under perfect competition. So for a perfect competition, all the firms are competing with each other. They have to change their prices based on each other, and eventually they reach this market equilibrium where no one is earning economic profit. Monopolies are completely different. So the monopolist demand curve is the market demand curve, and the monopolist is the only one producing to meet that demand curve. So the monopolist has complete control and can make any decision they want based on what's best for them. They're going to maximize profit just like any firm, but now they have a lot more control because they're not facing a flat demand curve. So if price goes up, people buy less. Law of demand. And this was very different from a perfectly competitive market where the demand was perfectly elastic, and if price goes up, then no one's buying any. So let's take a look at this. So we're on looking at demand curves, and let's break this down a little bit. I'm gonna just fold this down. So for demand curves, what we see on this side, that side right there, is a perfectly competitive market. You have a perfectly elastic demand curve where if price changes at all, from this line right here, if we have price changing at all, we're not going to get anything. So if we sell at this price, we're not going to sell anything. If we sell at this price, we can make more money, and we should move up to here. So this is the equilibrium price, and the quantity is going to be determined by how much people want to buy, rather than price. So let's take a look now at the monopolist demand curves. The monopolist demand curve is the market demand curve. That's right there. So as we go down, we're going to sell less and less. So we have to make a decision. What do we want to set our price at? Because if we set it at P1, we'll be here, that quantity. If we set it at P2, right there, we're going to be here, which is a very, very different scenario where we're selling a different quantity at a different price. So we want to determine what's going to be best for us, and this all has to do with profit maximization. We'll talk about how a monopolist profit maximizes. So you can pause here and take these down. I'm also going to upload the annotated notes as a separate PDF file, so it'll be in the chapter on monopoly and the unit on business decisions. So let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about revenue now. So how does the monopolist change their revenue? So because we have that downward sloping demand curve, selling more can reduces average revenue. So you're selling for lower prices, but you're selling more of it. So you have a higher quantity, but a lower price. And these can balance out. So what you want to do is you want to maximize your profit, not your revenue, but your profit. So increasing the quantity increases the total revenue. However, the price is going down, which decreases total revenue. So these two effects counteract each other, and you're going to have different situations or in different scenarios. What we really care about as the monopolist, if you go to the next slide, is profit maximization. Any business, their goal is to maximize profit. And this is key. Profit maximization is where marginal revenue, that's how much you make for that last unit. So if I'm selling hats, the 100th hat I can sell it for $7. It costs me $7 to make. I'm going to stop at that point because I don't gain anything as a firm by making that. I might make it just to sell a little more, but really it's a wash. I gain zero profit from it. So key, marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Say it to yourself. And we can think of this as MR equals MC. This is the exact same decision. Sorry about that. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. This is the exact same point that Perfect Competition, a firm there, was going to sell at. However, we're going to end up with a different situation because the price is not necessarily the same as the marginal revenue. So this point might actually be below the price you can sell at. Because you're the only one buying, the demand might be higher than that point. So if the value is below the price, the firm can make economic profit, because if price is $10, your marginal cost is $7, you're making $3 of profit on each unit. You're going to make 3 times whatever the quantity is. So again, very important point. I want to highlight this right here. For a competitive firm, price equals marginal revenue equals marginal cost. We're selling at whatever that last unit is. The monopolist can sell above it. So price is greater than marginal revenue, which is equal to marginal cost. This is where we stop, but we can sell above it. So this right here, this greater than, that leads to our profit. Very important. All right, let's continue on and take a look at this graphically. Okay, so I'm going to annotate this slide right here. We're also going to recreate it. Don't write anything down. I just want you to watch this. We'll recreate it on the next slide. So let's take a look. We've got our monopoly price and output equilibrium. I'm just trying to get this to where it's best set up. Okay. Getting some glare. Okay. Sorry about that. So we've got monopoly price and equilibrium. We see some similar curves. We've got our marginal cost, average revenue, marginal revenue, and we've got some equilibrium going on. So what points do we want to look at? Well, the monopolist wants to sell until marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Where does that happen? So we want to take a look, and we take a look and we see that that is right here. Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So I'll let you take a look at that one right there. You can take a look. We'll recreate this again in a second. But the price is not there. So we notice the price is all the way up there. So we can sell at this price right here. But how much does it cost us? So our average cost is right here. Average cost, price, that's the difference between these 2 points. P minus AC. That's how much we make on one unit. How much do we make on all of them? That difference times the quantity, which is this area. You just find the area of the rectangle. And that's profit. Right there. Monopoly profit. So let's take a look and recreate this. All right, this will take me a second because I'm working upside down. So we start with our 2 axes. We've got price, we've got quantity. And let's start with the demand curve. Also, average revenue, this is your demand curve. That's the same thing. So this is going down. We've got our demand equals average revenue. All right, what else do we have? Excuse me. Let's go back up. We've got our marginal cost curve, which here we've got some decreasing marginal cost, or we're just increasing marginal costs all the way. That could be different. Let's make ours a little bit of decrease in the beginning, but eventually we're going up. I'll also do this in a different color just to distinguish it. We'll do it in a nice purple. There's our marginal cost. Average cost is going to be in green. Here's our average cost. Remember, your low point on the average cost is where it equals marginal cost. Marginal cost pulls average cost in its direction. And then we've got a marginal revenue, which marginal revenue is going to go down as we go because willingness to pay is decreasing. So this is our marginal revenue. Okay, so let's find some key points on this graph. All right, let's start with where does the monopolist sell? So they're going to sell where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Where is that happening? Right here, where the purple and the blue intersect. So that is the quantity that the monopolist produces. But how much are people willing to pay for that quantity? Well, what do we have to look for? We have to look to our demand right here, that black curve. So we're going to go to that one. What price are we willing to pay at? Well, that is right here. So that is the price that the monopolist is going to sell at. And what was our average cost? It's right here. So that's what we have to pay. This is what we sold at. What is this called? You guessed it, profit. And that's how the monopolist breaks things down. Excuse me. All right, so I'll put this up one more time. You can pause and copy down anything you'd like. And then we're going to move on. All right, so you'll notice on this graph that there is no supply curve. Why is this? Think about what the supply is coming from. Supply comes from producers. How many producers do we have in this case? One. The monopolist. So the monopolist is the supply. That quantity, where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, that is the supply. So let's take a look at an example. We're going to talk about patented drugs. So a drug, not illegal drugs necessarily, but prescription drugs, medicines, all of these things have to get patents. A patent, you go to the government, you say, I created this drug, it's good for people, and you get the rights to sell it for a period of time. Typically a patent, I think it's about 20 years, I'm not exactly sure. But you can sell it at any price you want because you have the patent. You are now a monopolist. This is both a good and a bad thing. Let's take a look at some differences between the perfect competition and a monopolist. So in perfect competition, this would be after the patent expires. Other drug companies can come in and say, okay, we know how to make this drug, so we're going to make it too, and we'll sell it for a cheaper price. The original drug company now has to lower their price to match, and you get perfect competition. You get tons of different drug companies coming in, making the drug. So you get this very clear distinction between perfect competition after the patent expires, when lots of companies can make it, and a monopoly while the patent's still in place, before it expires, when just that company that created it can find it. So go ahead and take a look at this graph, and I'm going to break it down for you bit by bit. It looks a lot more complicated than it is. Let's take a look at some key pieces first. Our y-axis is price, cost, revenue is price, whatever you want to call it, it's money. The bottom axis right here, that is our quantity. It's labeled as output, quantity, same thing. All right, so we want to look, where does marginal cost equal marginal revenue? So for the monopolist, the marginal revenue equals marginal cost at this point right here. And this is the amount of quantity that is produced. That's the output for the monopolist. That's all that's going to be made. However, under perfect competition, you have one firm that's going to do that, but then you have other firms too. And these other firms will keep making the good until it meets the market demand. How much is the market demand? That is our average revenue. We could think of that as our demand curve. And that point is right here. So we get two very different outputs, as you can see. Which one is better? That's tough. We're going to talk about that in a second. It depends. The question is for who. So what do we see? The monopolist right here is going to price their product, and I'll change these up. I'm going to do monopolist in orange, and I'll do the market in blue. So here's the market, that's the market, and that's the market. Okay, so the monopolist is going to price their product here. This is the price for competition, because that's your average total cost. So what happens? We get some profit right here. Again, it's the difference between the average cost and the price. That's profit right there, the orange. What happens with perfect competition? Well, we can see that under perfect competition right here, we're selling at average total cost. That means you don't make any profit on any individual good. That's zero economic profit. You can just draw a flat line right here. What's the area of that? 0. And you have a big increase in the quantity. So this is probably going to benefit the consumers. In general, it's good for users, the people who need prescription drugs, when the patent expires, because it becomes cheaper. However, if the patent wasn't there in the first place, the monopolist might not have invented it, and then it never would have happened, which is kind of the reasoning of why we have patents. There's a lot of debate about this. There's pros and cons. There is definite drug prices are somewhat out of control, but it's a very important thing that we need to look at. All right, so I'm going to stop here. And when we come back, we will talk about welfare and monopolies. Thank you.